Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of Societal Chats. How time flies, we are here on our 11th session with a special guest, Sujith. Sujith Nair, who is right here with us. Sujith is the CEO and co-founder of Beckn Foundation, Beckn without the O, Beckn, which is nice. I like the way it kind of rolls. But Beckn Foundation essentially is a very interesting way of reimagining the world, and especially reimagining digital commerce. And we'll learn more from him. And he's been working on this principles, sort of focusing on inclusive. And today we also between protocols and platforms. If you recollect our conversations around protocols and platforms sometime back. So, and an open network marketplace, how do you build a digital public good? So it's going to be an interesting conversation around these topics. Before this, of course, he was the chief business officer at Mobike India, member of the directors for Paycraft Solutions, director Ernst & Young, EY, essentially focused on the transport sector, so smart transport advisory for India. Essentially, his passion includes mobility, payments, internet businesses, and building things that are simple at the core but at scale, which so is aligned with what we have been talking about across all these Aspire programs. So welcome so much, welcome Sujith, and we are so glad that you will join us today, and we are looking forward to a fun evening together.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. Hello, everyone. Absolutely delighted to be here. If I go with what the Aspire talks that I could witness, watch, I think look forward to some great conversations in this too, and a rich interactions with everybody. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So thanks, Sujith. So let's get started. Probably a good place to start is to help our audience on the call here to get a sense of what is Beckn, sort of give us an overview, take us on some interesting journey around, and also get us a sense of where does this fit into our lives. So would love to hear from you a brief introduction of what is. We're all curious. We love that little sign on top of your background, the Beckn with the dot. So what's behind that? So give us the construct of where you're going with this.
Absolutely. I wish I can be more concise than usual on talking about Beckn, but I'll definitely try. So the conversation on Beckn started off 3 years ago, around the same time, November 2018, between Nandan, Pramod, and myself. And the idea was to kind of think of creating, which we did realize later, it happens to be called protocol, but the idea was to create a set of open specifications as a non-code specifications as a form of digital infrastructure, and look at solving a particular type of problem that we seem to be confronted with in our daily lives. The idea was to kind of look at the premise in which digital marketplaces have evolved in the last few decades, in the last 2.5 to 3 decades. And the premise on which the whole idea of a digital marketplace is built, and the premise being that, very simply, it's about getting the buyers and the sellers, the consumers and the providers, whether they are public sector providers, private market players, the buyers and seller having to be on the same platform or a same form of a digital infrastructure, same platform to have any meaningful interactions. So between the people who have something to offer, the service providers, and the people who want to access and consume them, there is an underlying premise that both have to be on the same digital platform to discover each other, to establish trust between each other in the digital arena, and to also have a meaningful interaction, right from discovery to placing an order, consumer service, and kind of having a post-service kind of an exchange, be it offering a rating service, offering a grievance redressal kind of a service, and so on and so forth. Now, this premise that both have to be on the same platform kind of necessitates the need for a kind of a platform intermediary And that's where the idea of a platform-centric marketplace, kind of find its birth. And I think of course, as an audience on Aspire Talks, we all understand the concept of ecosystem-based approach and how do you align incentives and all of that. But I think here it fundamentally premises on the fact that the central intermediary who's operating the platform, incentives have to be aligned with that of the buyer and seller, which may not always be the case. It does a great job. Right? We've already seen the whole digital revolution, the digital economy coming up in a great way in the last two decades, but the incentives are not always aligned on all fronts. And that's where I think there are questions being raised as a kind of increasing scrutiny on some of the misincentive kind of play that happens in this whole interaction. Now, the idea is to kind of, in 2021, if you say that let's get off these platforms and find something else, that's not the conversation that Beckn was trying to do, but to see, is there a possibility to have other models also at play, which kind of addresses some of these concerns with alignment. And it again went back to the basics of asking the question, do the buyer and seller or the provider and the consumer need to be on the same platform in the first place, which kind of necessitates the need for a central intermediary. What if the buyer and seller happen to be on different platforms and yet discover, trust, interact with each other, and kind of allow for the whole playground to expand, where more people can participate in a very open, non-rivalrous way, discover each other, have fundamentally choice, both as a provider and as a consumer, whether you're talking about the digital retail marketplaces, we're talking about mobility, urban mobility kind of networks, whether you're talking about ordering food from a small-time restaurant in your neighborhood or from a grocery store, or getting a gig worker to find a job, even if it's just for half the day. All those aspects, if we allow for this choice to open up on both ends and allow for the power to be spread to these ends, both as a consumer with the choice, then I think there's a larger possibility here of expanding the ecosystem, the market access, and also having a way to build a more comprehensive, and a kind of a responsible ecosystem, which addresses the interest of everybody and not just of one party. So Beckn, as an idea, is to just enable creation of this particular model, which is a decentralized marketplace, a network without a center, where you can have the sellers and providers being on different platforms yet interact. Then obviously you need to have a medium of interaction because they are scattered on two different platforms, different energized infrastructures. To have that interaction happen, is there a possibility of creating a shared digital infrastructure? Very, very simple, lightweight infrastructure as a set of specifications, which is what Beckn protocol is all about. It's surprising that nobody has done that so far, the fact that we thought somebody has to start. So we created this conversation, and it's been a fantastic journey. People have been participating and taking it forward. So foundation has just been nudging the ecosystem to participate in that conversation. Yeah.
That's really fascinating. The simple idea that how do we move from a world where I'm trying to try one more level of abstraction, the multiple sides of a platform have to be on the platform to interact, vis-a-vis they can interact with each other without a platform because they all subscribe to a common way of interaction, which is a protocol.
That's right.
Right. And that opens so many possibilities that you don't have to go and build a internet grade humongous technology backbone. You can create a much more thinner wafer like protocol by which different people in the system can interact, and that's what you call as a protocol is that language, if you will, by which
That's right.
these people can talk. What does a protocol look like in real life? Give us an example which all of us on this call would be familiar with, right? Because e-commerce, and we may or may not be, but I'm sure there are protocols that permeate our real life which we don't even realize.
No, absolutely. This whole idea of a decentralized network with open protocols is not a new or a radically different idea. It's been there from kind of time immemorial when it comes to internet. The whole HTTP protocol or the email protocol, which is SMTP. So it's kind of a way, as Sanjay, you aptly put it, it's a medium for two different machines, okay, solving for a certain business problem to find a way to engage with each other. And today, we assume that if all the rules are put in one platform, then you're enabling solving that problem by having all the rules put in one black box as a platform, and then you get the users on both sides to interact. But with a protocol, it's actually it's like a virtual document of specifications. Today you have specifications all around you. Like for example, you have energy rating in a country. So in India, it's 220 volt 3 hertz as a frequency, which allows the energy sector interact with the whole appliance industry to have common ratings, so that appliance people can build for a common set of standards, so that you can plug in an appliance to any PowerPoint socket in the country, because of the energy ratings are consistent with the design with the appliance is built for. Similarly, here's just a set of standards, just like how in email, a sender and receiver could be on two different platforms. Oblivious of which platform, knowing which platform the other party is on, you can actually send emails across the planet. I could be on Gmail, somebody could be on Yahoo. All I just need is an email address in a certain format. And I know that if I send that email address, and if there's a valid email address, I'm pretty assured that the email will reach that person who may be on the other platform where the address was created. This address, that format, the specification is one example of how the protocol manifests itself as a specification. Of course, for different sectors, the manifestations could be different, but think of an email address format as a way to connect to people. Build several types of such formats for discovering shopping catalogs of a merchant, the skill catalog of an employee, appointment schedule of a doctor. If you can specify a common format, which is universal, acceptable, interoperable, as we say, so that other people can understand and interpret that specification, a list of that specifications is what Beckn is all about. So it's a bunch of specifications, largely confined to the coders, the engineering ecosystem to make sense of. But the idea is to be able to translate the whole the context of business, societal interactions into those specifications, so something can be built, implemented by platforms to exchange this common way of interaction, is what the specifications do. Sanjay, I don't know if this really helps visualize, but this
No,
might.
no, this is really opening a new chapter in many of our minds, because if one was to think about, say, working in healthcare, if there was a specification by which all the healthcare schemes could be, so to say, interpreted vis-a-vis a certain beneficiary, then you could have a very different setup vis-a-vis trying to create a platform on which all the schemes have to be ingested and then everybody has to consume them, right?
Right.
So creating a highly federated sort of gives me an idea, saying we always said that we should build a network on top of a platform, but what you are saying is that network is the platform,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
It is not that the network is on top of a platform. Network is the platform, because the network actors can talk to each other without necessarily having to enroll themselves into a central place, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can you also, in the same breath, share example of what happened in Montreal and Kerala? Let's bring it into real conversation. Some examples of what happened in your forays into these two. What were the learnings? What were the experiences?
Great. So I think I'll take Kochi, the mobility example in Kerala, the southern state in India. I think we started off this conversation. So I think, like I said, Beckn kind of has its origins in mobility. So we did not think beyond mobility when we started this discussion around having these open specifications. We didn't even know it will be called protocol. Eventually, it will be a protocol grade specifications. We just thought we'll put some non-code kind of a infrastructure in terms of specifications, put it out in the market and see how the market responds and build on top of that. And for us, the problem area when we started off is urban mobility. And we said, okay, we need to find a way to demonstrate this protocol actually works and allows us to reimagine the way marketplaces are created. So we picked up a city in India, a Kochi. The state government was very cooperative. They understood the essence of this idea. They came together to kind of create a conversation and allow for the local mobility operators to come on to join this discussion. And I think the pandemic only accelerated, catalyzed those conversations better, because the local taxi drivers were literally struggling with all the lockdowns and selective lockdowns and lack of visible demand in the physical world, they saw a desperate need to find a way to go online, apart from the options that they had available in terms of the other operators. So this is where the conversation happened. So very happy to report that the protocol has kind of put this marketplace, bring this marketplace to life. We're calling this Kochi Open Mobility Network, which is actually a network-centric marketplace, which has 5 different taxi associations, each participating independently and and trying to kind of be discoverable at their own command. And what they're trying to do is to use this protocol, get a local technology provider. Just give me one moment.
Sure. Get yourself a little bit of water. I think this.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of the weather too. Having a bit of a struggle with my
No.
chest
That's all
congestion.
right.
Great. Yeah, so just continuing on the topic. So we have 5 different taxi associations. Now having the choice to get any local technology platform developer to build a platform to build their inventory of services and bring the taxi operators in their associations online onto a digital cloud and make them discover rides from the other side of the network. So today we have a consumer side platform as a reference app just to demonstrate the protocol app, and the users are consumers are using that to discover taxi operators from 5 different taxi associations, and the taxi associations are able to put their own terms for discoverability. What price, what kind of a services do they offer, what kind of quality of service do they offer at their own command, with no aggregator defining the rules for them. So and they're pretty much running their own discounts and other programs all by themselves as a collective and participating in this. So that network has gone live since June. It was formally launched by the government of Kerala in July. And happy to report that even Kochi Metro, the local metro, has come online on the network in terms of publishing their schedules. We soon have the water transport. Kochi has a decent, 69 nautical miles of water transport available as one of the modes. They will be going live soon. Then we have parking providers coming onto this platform, and then bicycle sharing companies coming onto this problem over the next few months. Thus offering one multimodal open network and with more providers coming from one side, and soon you'll have some of the big consumer side platforms too coming on the other side and giving access to this network for their users. So that's what Kochi is. And there is a similar such network in Bangalore for not for mobility, but for urban logistics, for the last mile delivery, for the pickup and drops from the restaurants and the grocery stores to the end consumer. So we have a bunch of delivery platforms coming together and creating a network for the end user, like a merchant, to help them find a delivery agent in the neighborhood to help pick up the grocery and deliver it to their end customer. So that's another network that's gone live, albeit in small scale, both of them. But the idea is to build on top of that and create bigger networks, multiple networks, network of networks in India and other places. Yeah.
So what you just told us, fascinating, is that a taxi association figures out what's a protocol, builds something to that standard, and goes and connects into a network.
Yes.
How does that happen? Because we have questions around what's a protocol and what is not a protocol, and here's a taxi association, which I'm sure is not at the high end of technology, figuring this out and going and joining a network.
So that was a very interesting conversation. I still remember that very vividly. So I think the analogies have the power of communicating the essence. So I think the analogy we picked up was, I said, let's think of any big FMCG company, okay, like a Colgate Palmolive trying to sell toothpaste. Would they today cater to the market by opening exclusive showrooms where you only buy toothpaste, customer walk in to just buy toothpaste? Or would they make their products available at every corner of the street where there are local merchant stores where not just Colgate, but other items are sold, not just toothpaste, but other items are sold. So the idea of creating your own app or your own platform as an exclusive showroom on the internet and waiting for customers to walk in to buy your services, vis-a-vis making your services go where the customers are actually spending time. So the whole analogy of a grocery store as compared to an exclusive showroom to buy toothpaste, the same analogy, if you make your mobility services available where consumers are spending time, I think that idea, they immediately got it. And I said, yeah, it makes complete sense. And the fact that I don't have to market my exclusive showrooms on the internet and spend money to get customers to walk in, rather at fraction of that cost, make my service be available at places where consumers are spending time. It could be a chat messenger, it could be a browser, it could be a virtual assistant, or it could be an IVRS call in the local vernacular. Wherever consumers are interacting with anything on cloud, can I make my service available there? And that's where, I mean, they didn't understand what a protocol is. They probably still don't understand what a protocol is, but this analogy is something that they could connect with.
Fascinating. So, if I was in the business of training people on how to become a good carpenter, vis-a-vis
Yes,
vis-a-vis opening a carpentry institution where they have to come and learn, if I could make this service visible into wherever people are going and doing other things, then there's a higher chance of the discoverability and actually rendering the service to people,
that's
which
right.
is essentially protocols is an interesting way to take the service where the people are rather than bring the people to the platform that you own, which is an interesting mind
Absolutely.
flip, right?
That's right.
Because you have a protocol, you can now permeate the ecosystem rather than requiring the ecosystem to come to your house, right?
That's
That's
right.
interesting. I think you made two very important points. One important point is that to get something like this going, start simple. Start with things that can be solved with the protocol rather than try to solve the most intractable problem first with the protocol, because then
Right.
you are outreaching yourself way. And the second is that the opportunity expansion of possibilities that fuels the growth rather than trying to drive it through checks and balances and regulations. So because otherwise there's no pull in the system, you have to pull people into this.
Yeah.
So I think start simple. We always say, no, don't scale what works, but well, uh, find out what works at scale. And so if it's a small like trust certificate or some kind of a small interaction, start there, scale, then build, then the next thing. So it's a journey in itself. So I think we have a few minutes left. I don't want to miss this opportunity to learn about what happened to you in this journey. What did you go through as a entrepreneur who could have built the familiar stuff, and then you get thrown into this protocol business which you yourself are trying to figure out what this is and how do you make it happen. So what's going on inside Sujith? Give us some color of that. What has been your internal protocol to get where you have gotten to?
No, absolutely. And when you actually put up my profile as one of the slides at the beginning of the conversation, I was really helping wonder, where was I a few years ago and where have I ended up? But it's been a fantastic roller coaster ride. Very exciting. I don't think there's anything else that I would like to do. But several challenges personally for me. One, to kind of embrace this whole idea. It was kind of a big change. So there are a lot of challenges, but probably I'll pick one or two or three in the interest of time. One, of course, is the fact that before Beckn, the work that I was doing, and the last part of that, I've been management consultant for well over a decade. For me, I think this whole belief system that I had at that time, that problem is very definitive, and once you define the problem with clear boundaries, it's all about defining the right solution, and probably solutioning part is more challenging, and solution may not always be sufficient. A few times you succeed, which reinforces that belief, but many times you fail. And even when it fails, that approach, you kind of look at, oh, the solution was not inadequate, but you never looked at the kind of notion that we carry about the problem itself, right? And when you're talking about population scale change, I think right since Aadhaar, not particularly at them, it kind of had this feeling that it's not one problem, but it's several problems connected like a problem of problem. And therefore, I pretty much realized as soon as I started this conversation that I was approaching this problem with an empty toolbox. All my methods, ideas, were pretty much inadequate to kind of articulate, define this problem, and the problem itself is kind of evolving. So that was, so confronting that, and therefore finding a new way as the societal platform way of doing things and building that toolbox is a challenge, and I'm still working at it. And that's one thing that I've tried to embrace and kind of change the way I approach things. The second, of course, the fact that it's just a protocol, and making protocols stick with some of the topics that I mentioned. As just as a protocol, it's not a solution by itself, and making the ecosystem aware, especially in 2021, and to Mangalam's point, that there's a significant legacy of a set model for commerce. So to kind of create protocol after the market creation instead of protocol first and then the market creation, that's one of the challenges that I go through. So I think my bets are pretty much on, having more people talk about this, some of them in the policy, having influence on policy, influence to kind of create narratives in the market, build a community around this and take this narrative forward, and also bring practitioners on board at scale to demonstrate this idea and take it. So idea is to kind of let them take this forward, and me just be a nudge trying to bring them together and build a community around this whole idea. So that's pretty much how I see myself. I'm learning and still grappling with it, but it's been one hell of a ride otherwise. Yeah.
Fascinating. All right. Also, you may want to mention, Sujith, about the Beckonathon that you are currently running.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think so I think one way to kind of activate a conversation is to go to some of the policymakers. Then you have the market players, which is both the incumbents and the neo challengers. Neo challengers are more willing to receive risk to take because pretty much they have nothing to lose to start with. But the other thing is to kind of reach out to the young minds who are getting into adulthood, getting their first jobs in colleges, to kind of make them reimagine this possibility, and people who have a little bit of a technology kind of problem solving orientation, to make them aware of the protocols. I mean, last time I studied something of protocol was in my undergraduate days. So I thought maybe it's good time for us to reach out, and what better way than having a Beckonathon and craft a few challenge questions for them to, let their imagination fly and come up with solutions. And we got some fantastic responses so far, and we're in the process of evaluating them, but the participation has been great. And hopefully they'll also join the whole volunteering group in the community, some of them.